Now we're going to talk about some project extras. These are things you can do if you have reimbursement budget left over after you've purchased your plants and mulch. Deer fencing. We get a lot of questions about how to protect new plants from deer. Temporary cages or fencing is reimbursable through HIP. Examples include strapping like you see in this picture below, or you could use something simple like a cage made out of chicken wire. Anything temporary and only around the new plants is reimbursable. Edging is also a reimbursable material. Use edging to create definition between your new mulch and the adjacent portion of your landscape. You can use bricks, wood, plastic, get creative. Some examples here include bricks and treated wood put in place with rebar. See page 9 for some additional ideas. We get a lot of questions about how to hold mulch in place on steep slopes. You can use edging materials like little tiny check dams on steep slopes to keep the mulch in place. These examples here are cut logs held in place with wooden stakes. This example is a straw wattle also held in place with wooden stakes. If you have old limbs or logs available on your property, repurpose those on a steep slope to help hold your mulch in place. Rain barrels are also reimbursable, but only if you install them in areas so you can use the water to water your new native plants. Irrigation supplies, things like soaker hoses and timers, are also reimbursable through HIP. If you need additional information on installing a rain barrel, see page 10 of your handbook. To review, project components of the HIP Native Landscaping Program include native plants and mulch, dry creek bed features like ribbons of rock mulch, edging materials, temporary deer protection, and rainwater harvesting or irrigation supplies. Reimbursable expenses generally are materials, tools, and delivery fees necessary to install these things. Now we're going to walk through the steps to get started on a HIP project. The application and permit packet is the end result of your HIP design and planning process. You will have each receive an example, one for the City of Bellingham if you live within city limits, and for people outside of city limits, you have an example for Whatcom County. The application packets are different because city code and county code are a little different. Please take a moment to walk through the examples that you've received. These should be located in Appendix E. Remember that you can receive additional help understanding these application packets and filling them out at a site visit. Permits are generally good for 1 to 2 years. The rules do vary by city and county. You can usually get an extension if you need to. The application materials provide a good example of what we're going to talk about next as we walk you through the process of designing and installing a HIP project. As a first step, we recommend that you review the workshop materials you've received. These include the binder with the DIY Native Landscaping Program Handbook and all of the appendices. The Landscaping with Native Plants Handbook is especially helpful. Browse through the websites provided, like the King County Native Planting Guide. Think about goals for your property. Walk around your property and note sun and shade conditions. When you're ready to start designing your native landscaping project, please call and request a site visit. During the site visit, you can receive assistance identifying unique planting areas, identifying areas in the road right-of-way you would like to plant, and also receive help measuring areas. A unique planting area is an area in the right-of-way or an area that is all the same vegetation layer combination. This is an example. This property has 3 unique planting areas. The backyard area is shady with an existing tree, so the tree, shrubs, and ground cover option would be good here. The front yard planting area is sunny with 1 existing tree. We can count that existing tree as a shrub and select the shrub and ground cover planting plan. And the right-of-way needs its own unique planting area And please note that no trees are allowed in road right-of-way.
Here's some additional information about measuring areas for your HIP project. Please refer to Appendix H for additional information, and remember that you can get additional assistance at your site visit. Pacing is a quick and easy way to estimate distances on your property. Follow the steps in Appendix H to determine your pace length. Measuring tapes and measuring wheels are two other tools for measuring distances. While measuring tapes are handy for measuring smaller distances, measuring wheels are an easy way to measure longer distances on your property. HIP-eligible properties, both within city limits and outside of city limits, can be viewed and analyzed using a free online mapping service called CityIQ. Please take note that property lines and some utilities found on CityIQ maps are only applicable for properties within Bellingham city limits. For further instructions, please refer to Appendix H of your binder. We know that homeowners have different levels of experience estimating area on their property. Here's an example of a planting area for a HIP project. You can see that it's not very easy to measure. What are some ways you can think of to estimate this planting area? One idea is to divide your planting area into a series of smaller squares, rectangles, and triangles. Measure those areas individually, and then add them together to calculate the total planting area. Remember, you can always ask for help from HIP staff on your site visit.
After you've identified your planting areas and measured them, sketch them on your map and name them. Use the planting worksheet in Appendix E to determine the number of plants needed. Please use the resources available at the site visit to help with your plant lists. You may also use the planting plans and plant lists in Appendix C. Here's an example for this property, just looking at the front yard planting area. Again, this planting area is full sun with one existing tree. Using this example and the planting worksheet, we enter 700 square feet into the total planting area. Note the planting area description on top says front yard. We select option D for shrubs and ground covers only. If you're using the Excel version, it'll automatically calculate the minimum number of shrubs and ground covers required, or you can use a calculator and do the math manually. The planting worksheet also tells you how many cubic yards of mulch are required to meet the minimum 4 inches depth. This example shows a mix of evergreen plants, plants that bloom, and plants that have some color in the winter. Note that scientific names are preferred and provided on this sheet. Here's how you can schedule a site visit to get additional help after you've worked on your draft plan. Call or email Emily at the Whatcom Conservation District. Please note it may take 1 to 3 weeks in advance to schedule based on availability. A site visit may take about 2 to 3 hours, and you can get help finalizing your planting area locations, measuring planting areas, making your maps, selecting plants, filling out the planting worksheets, and any additional help you need filling out the paperwork. The next step is to submit your application. Please see pages 14 through 16 of your handbook for specific directions. Directions differ based on if you're in the city of Bellingham or outside of city limits in Whatcom County. Please note it may take 2 to 3 weeks to receive your permit approval. Again, additional explanation and assistance with the application paperwork is available at a site visit. After you have received an approved project plan, you're ready to start working on your native landscaping project. Please see pages 16 through 17 of your DIY handbook for some additional details and instructions. For buying materials, please use Appendix D and be sure you're saving your receipts. When you're actually doing the work of installing your native landscaping, here's some tips and reminders. Please do not flip the sod. Flipping the sod damages the soil and is not part of the allowed permitted work for the HIP program. Please look for detailed instructions and tips in the Landscaping with Native Plants handout. If you need to install your project in 2 or more phases, please consult with staff. Spring and fall are the best time to plant your plants. Summertime is a great time to do your mulch. If you want to hire help, please see some ideas on page 11 of your handbook. Remember that labor is not reimbursable through the HIP program. Once you've completed all the work on your project, you're ready for final inspection and reimbursement. Please review the information in your handbook on pages 18 through 20 and review Appendix F for a reimbursement request form. Again, if you want to divide your project into multiple phases, please consult with HIP staff. After your final inspection, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for reimbursement after the paperwork has been submitted to Whatcom County Public Works. A maintenance agreement is required for all of your HIP project. Please see your handbook on page 20 and review the maintenance agreement in detail in Appendix G. Some key things you'll need to do to keep your plants healthy are be sure to water them during the summertime for the first few years. Keep your eye out for weeds and keep the area weeded. Look out for noxious weeds. Eventually, if a lot of plants die, we may ask that you replace ones. And you may be asked to submit a photo and some information showing off your lovely landscape and documenting that it's still in place once a year. This is an example of the maintenance agreement schedule. A signed and notarized agreement is required and turned in with the reimbursement request.
Here is the DIY Native Landscaping Program Homeowner Acknowledgement Form. You should have been provided a copy of this with the binder that you picked up. Take a look, make sure that you understand the program expectations, and once you feel comfortable, check the boxes, sign the form, and return following the instructions on the first page of the form. There is also a photo release form attached to this document, which you may also sign and submit at the same time. Once we receive your homeowner acknowledgement form, you're welcome to schedule a site visit with our knowledgeable native plant experts at the Whatcom Conservation District. Once we receive your homeowner acknowledgement form, we will also email you a link for online resources, including all the documents found in your binder, as well as additional blank paperwork that you may need to submit your HIP application. Thank you for your interest in the HIP Do-It-Yourself Native Landscaping Program. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. Our contact information is listed on the back page of the DIY Native Landscaping Program Handbook, located in the very first section of your binder.